Hey everybody, welcome to the stream here on this Friday, December 1st. Glad you all could make it, and if you're watching the recording after the fact, thanks for coming back to watch it. My name is James Peak. I will be your host for this live stream here. And yeah, I wanted to try a slightly different time of day for this workshop. I've been doing my other ones kind of in late evening for my time zone, and today I wanted to do one middle of the day. And the next stream I do is actually going to be on a weekend, so I'm going to try a different time for that as well. So if you are watching this on YouTube, I sure would appreciate it if you would subscribe to my channel. And if you enjoy the video, please give it a like. I'd really appreciate it. And if you are out there, either on Facebook or YouTube, please say hi in the chat. I'd love to know you're here. And let's see here. Yeah, so there's a lot that I'm going to be covering in this live stream today. All right, so I guess first of all, let's just talk for a second about what I'm going to be teaching today, what we're going to be focusing on. We are going to be folding oops, oh my gosh, sorry, got too many things going on at once there. Okay, wrong shortcut, there we go. All right, cool, we are folding Sonobe units today. And today I'm gonna show you a variation on the traditional Sonobe unit. And I'm gonna show you a number of different assemblies as well. And we're gonna get into that in just a second. But before we do, I have a few quick announcements that I wanna share with you all that I am very excited about, okay? So I have three. All right, so let's start with the first one. So first off, happy to announce my next live stream will be Saturday, December 16th. And I'm so excited to say that Seiji Nishikawa has granted me permission to teach this Santa model. And this Santa model, hands down, is my favorite Santa model out there. It is so cool. It's so cute. And it is, it's very clever. It's relatively easy to fold. And it's all one sheet of paper, too. I mean, it just looks great. It's even got the sack in the back. And this model is actually technically called the Christmas present, okay? And what's really special about this model is that you can open up Santa's sack here. Oh, look, there's something in there. What could it be? You can open it up and put something inside of it. How cool is that? And what do we have here? Oh, look, it's a giant googly eye. Woo! I love googly eyes. Okay, so yes. So that'll be the next live stream. That'll take place on Saturday, December 16th at 1 p.m. Eastern Time, which is 10 a.m. Pacific Time, 6 p.m. GMT. Okay, cool. So that's the first announcement. The second thing I want to talk about is that I am offering a discount on private lessons, whether we do them virtually or you're here in Oberlin, here at Fold Space Studio in person. But I'm here through the end of the year, I'm offering a 50% discount on all classes. And a lesson lasts for 90 minutes. It's $50 for a one-on-one, $75 for a small group, and the paper is included. Even if you're not here in Oberlin, I will mail you some paper. It's a great gift idea. You can give it out as like a gift certificate to friends and family. And there's no limit on the number of classes that you can purchase. So maybe you want to buy a whole bunch for different people in your family. Or maybe you want to just buy a block of lessons for yourself, some private one-on-one instruction with me here at Fold Space. So if you are interested in purchasing any of these prepaid lessons, please just email me at james@foldspacstudio.com. Okay, so those are my two first announcements, right? But the third one is the one that I am especially stoked about, okay? So back in 2020, I hosted an online convention, the Fold Space Origami Convention, and it was such a cool experience for me. I think we sold over 400 tickets, and I had like 10 different instructors or so. It was around there. I think there might have even been like one or two more. It's been a while. And it was a whole weekend-long event. Well, I'd like to do another ticketed event. Now, the thing is, though, this one is going to be a bit different. This is not going to be a traditional convention, per se, where I have a whole bunch of other people teaching. What I'm going to do, I'm going to host an online retreat where I will be teaching all of the classes, but I will still be featuring different artists. I will have a number of special guests, and I will be teaching a handful of different models, different styles. And I'm designing this event to be very accessible. So even if you don't have a lot of experience in origami, this event is going to be right up your alley. And I'm, as you can tell, really excited about it. And I just wanted to announce the date, March 15th through the 17th, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 2024. Mark your calendars, okay? And again, this will be a ticketed event, and I am going to be releasing more details in the coming weeks, all right? So those are my announcements, and now let's get into our lesson, okay? Now I've got some notes here because there's so much stuff that I want to cover, and you know, this live stream is going to be a bit different from my normal live streams because usually I'm teaching a model that has a specific sequence from start to finish, and we're all basically you know, at the same point of that sequence throughout the whole folding process, right? So today, because I want to show you, I'm going to be showing you the basic Sonobe unit. I'm going to show you the different variations. I also want to share with you a trick, like a shortcut, for if you want to make multiple units out of one piece of paper that can shave a little bit of time off of your you know, unit making process. Okay, and then I want to show you some different assemblies. Okay, so real quick, let me show you here the different assemblies we're going to cover today. I want to show you the cube, the triangular bipyramid, which is also known as a hexahedron. And in fact, both the cube and the triangular bipyramid are both hexahedra because they both have 6 faces, all the same shape, regular faces. I'm also going to show you a little variation on the triangular bipyramid that gives it these little wings here. It looks kind of like a UFO, kind of. Okay, and then I'm going to show you the stellated octahedron here, right? And then finally, now I'm not going to assemble one of these today, but I just wanted to just show you an example. I can also show you an example of a stellated icosahedron, right? This takes 30 units, so we're not going to be making this today on the stream, but I'm going to show you how it's done. Okay. All right. Now, let's begin. Get this stuff out of the way. Oh, and I almost forgot too. The other thing I want to cover today, once we've made all of the assemblies, I can show you how we can easily turn any of these Sonobe assemblies into a little ornament. And you might hear this one has a little bell inside of it. You don't need a bell specifically, but we'll get to that here in a little bit. All right. So. All right, let's talk about the basic Sonobe unit. Now, the basic Sonobe unit, or just Sonobe units in general, they've been around for a long time. Honestly, I don't know much about the history behind, you know, where they came about. That will be for maybe a video for another day, okay? But I wanted to start out just by showing you what the basic unit looks like, all right? So first off, I want to start with the white side facing up. And a little trick here, if you care to find the grain of the paper. Now this isn't necessary, but I typically like to do this because it can make my folding process a little bit easier. Okay, so the way you figure out what direction the grain of the paper is in, and by the way, when I say grain of the paper, these machines that you know, produce this paper, they have a way of sort of like lining up all of the grains of the paper in a sort of a one direction, right? Say for instance, so to figure out which direction that's going, you can simply pick up your paper, kind of like you're holding like a hot dog bun. And if you just give it a slight squeeze, okay, just kind of see how that feels. But then if you rotate it 90 degrees and then take the other two sides and kind of squeeze it together, you might notice that there is a slight difference in the amount of resistance the paper gives you. So if you're not sure, turn it again, try it, and then turn it in again, try it again. And typically all kami will have sort of a grain going in one direction. Okay? So when you find the direction of the grain, that's the direction that we want to make our very first fold, which is going to be a book fold. So I'm going to take the bottom edge, match it up to the top, hold before you fold, slide down the middle, and then go all the way out to one side, back to the middle, and all the way out to the other. Now, something I completely forgot to mention is paper selection for these models. So all of the units that I've shown you here have what's called a color change. Okay? So for this particular variation where we get this cool stripe on the Sonobe unit, you're going to want to have paper that has a different color on each side. So you can use your standard traditional kami, which is white on one side and has a different color on the other. Or if you have some cool duo color paper that has a color other than white on one of those sides, that can work really well too. Here's a couple nice duo color models that I really like. Okay, back to our basic Sonobe unit. Okay, so we've made our book fold, and then we're going to open it up, and we will now use our center crease, this valley crease here, to make what is often referred to as a cupboard fold, which is actually two folds. It's twofold. So we're going to take this parallel edge to the crease, and we're going to match it up to the crease. And when I'm making these types of folds, I often like to use this edge kind of like a wall. So I'll kind of like push the edge right up into that little crease, and the paper will kind of naturally stop the paper. And that's a kind of a sure way of lining things up. So I'm going to line that up, make my fold. Okay. And then I'm going to do the same thing with the opposite edge. So I'm going to rotate it. And I'm actually going to get this out of my way here first. And I'm going to take this so that I can, I get this out of the way so I can once again kind of push that edge right up against that crease and then hold it in place and make my fold. And that gives us our traditional cupboard fold. Cupboard fold is when you take two opposite sides of a rectangle and bring them to meet in the middle. Okay? All right, now for the next step, I'm going to begin by showing you what I find is kind of the more common way this is demonstrated or taught in books, videos, what have you. Okay? What you're going to do is, now this next step can come from either of these bottom corners, and it doesn't matter which one you use, except that once you pick one, you need to stick with that for the rest of the units that you're folding. Okay, they all need to be folded the exact same way, right? So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to, every time I make a unit, I'm going to tilt it a little bit to the left and use this corner here. And what I'm going to do is take that bottom corner, I'm going to fold it up so that this short edge of the rectangle lines up with this edge right all the way down to the point. So I bring that up, and I make my crease through all those layers. And then I need to do the same thing with the opposite corner, diagonal from where I began. So I'm going to spin it around this way. And so now that corner is down here, right? And I'm going to do the exact same thing, folding this up to here. And that's going to make a parallelogram. Now, funny enough, the The square that we started with is also a parallelogram, technically. And when we folded it in half and made our cupboard fold, those are parallelograms as well, right? But typically when we think of a parallelogram, this is the shape that I think usually comes to mind. At least it is for me, right? But if we're going to be technical about it, we got to include them all. All right, cool. So we've got our parallelogram. And now what we're going to do is we're going to unfold each of those corners. And so there's our cupboard fold again. But now notice that these triangles, they're still folded up from when we folded this down. And we're going to go ahead and flatten those as well. And again, I'm showing you the basic unit. This is the traditional Sonobe unit. What we do next is if we open up the cupboard door and this little triangle that we created here, we're just going to reverse this mountain crease so that the triangle goes inside the door. And then I'm going to close the cupboard door, and I'll do the same thing up here. I'm going to open the door, reverse this crease, and then close the door once again. Okay. Next, what we're going to do is basically close the model up, but it's kind of like if you've ever taken a cardboard box and closed it in on itself, and kind of when you kind of like weave the four flaps of the box together so that one is going on top of the other, which is going on top of the next and top of that, and so it makes kind of like a twist, or kind of like a cool little collapse. So we're basically going to do that. So we can start by actually just opening one of the doors and pushing this down, and then closing this. And then now this one here needs to tuck underneath this spot here. So I'm going to tuck that in this way. And there you have your basic module. Now we still need to add some more creases in to the paper. So let's do that now. But yeah, so next let's take the model, the unit, and we'll flip it over to the other side. And we're going to take this corner and bring it up to this corner. I want you to imagine there's this square. You just kind of visualize a square inside the unit here. And we're going to take this bottom corner up to fill in one half of that square, and then we're going to do the same thing here. I always like to fold up, well, usually like to fold up and away from myself, so I'm going to rotate it so I can go up like so, and make my crease. And so there is the basic Sonobe unit. And I've got another one folded here, and I'm going to show you that this unit comes equipped with a couple of tabs, and there are 4 pockets. And I'll use my little pencil here. So we've got a pocket here, 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 and oops, wrong way, here. Okay. So what we can do with the basic unit is we can take a tab of one and we can slide it into the pocket of another. Okay. And this is how you would start making your cube. Then there's something else we can do. We can add an extra crease in the middle of the unit. And we can add either a mountain fold or a valley fold. And when we go over the different assemblies, I will show you when we want to not make any folds in the middle, when we want to make a mountain fold, and then when we want to make a valley fold. All right? So, just show you real quick, like if we were to put valley folds in the middle of the unit, each unit, I can still tuck this tab into this pocket, like so. Okay? And yeah, so that's what it looks like. All right? So that's the basic unit. Now, I'm here to show you this variation. And in fact, there are actually 2 variations that we can talk about here very easily, and they are not very different from one another. Where'd it go? Well, I'm not seeing it here. Maybe okay, here's what I'm going to do. I think I accidentally used it in one of these assemblies. Yeah, I think that's what happened. I'm like, where'd it go? Okay. So here's the basic unit. Okay. Here's the variation that we're going to be working with primarily today. But then I can also show you how you can do another slight variation, which just gives you a different color change here. So you're not seeing quite as much of this white stripe. And I don't know if anybody noticed this, but I'm going to show you some examples. So like, here, I'm going to use this cube. So this is using this unit where you've got more of the white showing, okay? But then this one here, notice how there's this little extra bit of color here. And in fact, this one here also has that variation where there's just that little bit of extra color. And that, of course, comes from this unit here, all right? So those are the three variations that we can work with today. And so let's fold one. Now, let's begin. We're going to be folding a bunch of units here. So here, I found the grain of the paper. The grain is going this way. So that's the direction I'm going to make my book fold. Now, I didn't really go into this yet, but the reason that I like to find the grain of the paper is that I'm going to be making a book fold and then the creases for a cupboard fold. And if those creases are all running along the grain, they're just a little bit easier to make. So that's just something to keep in mind when you're making something and you know you're going to have a lot of creases going in a certain direction. Sometimes you want to work with the grain, but then other times you might actually want to work against it. It all kind of depends on what you're making. So, okay, making my cupboard fold. It starts out the same exact way as we did before with the cupboard fold. All right, so I'm going to lift this up and put that down here. Okay. So I'm going to actually show you two different ways of making this first variation. And the first one is a little bit, dare I say, clunky. I mean, it works fine. But as always, I enjoy showing you different approaches, ways that might actually improve your end result. Little tips and tricks that I figured out along the way that I find yield better results, right? So we're going to do the same thing that we did before, though. You know, I tilted my rectangle to the left so that I can use this bottom corner and fold this up and make an angle bisector on this 90-degree angle. And then spin it around. Same here. And there's our parallelogram. And if we unfold the flaps, next what we can do is make another angle bisector with this 45-degree angle here. And what I mean is if we take this creased edge and bring it to meet here, there's that. It creates an angle bisector that goes to this corner. And that's where that big white triangle stripe comes from. I'm going to do the same thing with the other side, but first I want to rotate it. Take this edge up to here. And there we go. So next we need to tuck these corners just like we did before. And it's pretty easy just to open one door, put the one big triangle down, close the cupboard door, and then for this one, we can just kind of tuck it in. Okay, now this is a great example of why I think this is a little more clunky, and I'm going to show you the variation here in a minute, but no, this corner isn't so clean, and if yours isn't very clean, don't worry about it, but I'm going to show you a better way of doing this. All right, so we can now treat this the exact same way as we would treat the normal unit, except this time, instead of the pocket, well, here, actually first, every single time we make a unit, we actually do need to go ahead and flip it over and fold the tabs from this square. Okay, so this corner is going to come up this way, and this corner will come down. But you know, again, I like to spin it around and fold up, and that gives us our little square again. And for all of these assemblies that I'm going to show you, you will always fold these tabs to this side. The one thing that does change, of course, is what happens here. But I just wanted to show you that with this variation, instead of the pocket running right up the middle as it did before, and I'll just show you that again real quick. Oh, jeez. Okay, there we go. All right, so yeah, so for this, the pocket is going right through the middle. For this one, instead, the pocket is just off to the side a little bit. So that's going to go in like that. And it behaves the same way as the traditional unit. All right, so pretty easy. Now, let me quickly show you this other variation where you get the extra little bit of color like you do with this one here, okay? So it starts the exact same way as before. Find the grain of the paper. There it is. Fold with the grain to make a book fold. By the way, if you feel comfortable with this and you know how to make the unit, if you want to start cranking them out, go for it. Okay, so you do this cupboard fold. And once again, we do this, bringing this corner up to here. Always coming from the same direction, the same corner. Just pick a corner and stick with it every time. And I rotate it. Fold this corner up to make our traditional parallelogram. And so now, once again, we open this up. We're basically going to kind of combine the first two units I showed you, the basic one and then the last variation. So we are still going to take this corner and hide it underneath this cupboard door like we did before. So we can open the door, tuck that inside, close the door. Okay, same here, open the door, tuck the triangle inside. Remember, we did not tuck the triangle inside for that previous variation I just showed you. But then from here, we're going to do the same angle bisector that we did before on this 45-degree angle. But as you can see, when we fold this up, there, now we get a different look. So we bisect that angle. Same on the other side. Take this edge, bisect this 45-degree angle, like so. And then we tuck the corners, just like before. And we end up with just a slightly different unit. Okay, but here I'm going to flip it over. Let's go ahead and make our tabs by making that, kind of folding the tabs into that smaller square. I just folded down. Okay, and we still have the same pocket, and it's basically in the same place. It's just that now, here, actually, I'll use this yellow one. Now, this tab that we are inserting has just this little bit of extra color here, right? So, practically the same as the unit before, all right? Now, what I'd really like to show you is a different approach for folding the, let's see here, what color did I just do? pink. Here, let's do another pink one. So after you fold these a bunch of times, you start to notice some patterns, and you also start to notice little sort of adjustments that you can make that can maybe improve the end result, maybe make things a little bit cleaner, help them line up a little bit better, okay? So this is the way that I recommend that you fold your units. Now, if you're in a hurry, you don't want to take, I mean, it doesn't really take that much extra time, but I don't know, I find that it's just totally worth it to do it this way. And I'm actually going to unfold the unit that I made a second ago, because I'm going to use it as an example as to why I don't really like this like other sort of more clunky approach, okay? So let's begin once again the same way we did before with our, there we go, with our book fold. Always going the easier way. And then cupboard fold. Okay, so here's where we're going to change it up a little bit. And I'm going to explain why. So now, I'm not going to actually make this fold, and I don't think you should either. I'm just showing you something real quick. So when we make this fold this way, this layer sometimes has a tendency of getting kind of pushed up and out. And I noticed it when I did this one. And I don't know if it's really going to show you, but it's kind of hard to tell. But I know that when I made this fold here, you see how like that, there's like a, you can barely see it. There's just like a slight edge sticking out here, okay? And then, so here I am, and then when I go to make the angle bisector, that little edge tends to want to stick out even more, okay? And what's also happening is that the crease did not really hit that corner in a very clean way. And so it kind of, I ended up with a kind of a messy corner, which we don't want that, right? So we want to, or try to avoid that at all, at any cost. So here's how I do this slightly differently. Now, we don't actually need to fold through all those layers at the same time. So what I like to do is I go ahead and I open this cupboard door. I get it out of the way. Let's not worry about this just yet. Let's go ahead and make the fold that, I mean, the papers, we're going to ultimately fold it this way anyhow, right? And what we can do now also is, if we look here, you might want to leave just like the thinnest gap. It's like a hairline gap. And when you're folding it like this, what I find is that you just see like a little bit of like, you know, sort of like bright white on the kami. So, you know, it doesn't need to go all the way into the crease necessarily, and that's going to give the paper some room when we do eventually close this. So I go ahead and I make this fold here. Then I close the cupboard door, and now we can work on this corner. Now, we're basically going to make an angle bisector here, but once again, I'm going to recommend that we leave another gap. Okay, and here's what I mean by that. I'm going to bring this edge up like so, but I'm not going to bring this edge exactly to meet this outer edge, okay? And this is, you have to kind of eyeball this, and you don't need to leave a lot of space, but just enough so that you can see a little bit of color here. And it just makes kind of like a straight line. So you're still trying to make this edge parallel to this edge, but it doesn't need to meet the edge. So just leave like a little bit. And you'll have to just kind of figure this out for yourself as you make them, just, you know, like judging how much of a gap to leave. Again, you don't need to leave very much. And here, I mean, that might be 0.5 millimeter. That might even be like a little much, but I wanted you to at least be able to see it. Okay, so yeah, I could, maybe I could probably stand to be a little closer, but big deal. I don't think it really matters actually, because now what I can do, I'm going to take this edge and bring it here to make our angle bisector. Now to do that, the other thing you got to keep in mind is that you don't want this to slide around very much. So you really want to kind of grip it right here, really pinch it. And now we do want to bring this edge to meet the outermost edge of the paper here. So if you really pinch that, bring it up, and if you kind of make sure that your edge is lined up here, it's going to just very easily find that corner here. So I was making a bunch of these last night, getting ready for the stream, and using this technique was great because almost every time I ended up with a really nice angle bisector here and a really clean point. And to top it off, I also didn't have any extra paper getting kind of shoved out, sticking out this edge. I ended up with a nice clean edge. All right, so now to do the other side, if I rotate it around, now I've already got this stuff kind of in place, but in order for me to lift this cupboard door up, I actually need to unfold this. So I'm actually going to pull that out for just a second. We'll put it back in a minute. But I'm going to pull that out so I can open this cupboard door and do the same thing. We're bringing this bottom corner up, bringing this edge to meet this crease. So I bring this here, very slight gap. I mean, barely any gap, but you can have a little bit. Make that fold, close the cupboard door. Now I'm going to work on the angle bisectors down here, except for the first one. I'm going to leave just the slightest little gap, just enough so that you can see a line of color. You don't need much. Make that crease, and then now I'll make one more angle bisector, but this time we're really going to pinch those layers and pull that up. And the reason you really want to pinch and hold is to help prevent that inside flat from sliding out. So I tend to like really grip it, and I don't worry too much about this part. I'm just mostly looking at lining this up here. Okay, so now we can finish it by taking this and we can just re-tuck it back into this pocket here. Right? And there we go. Our new and improved Sonobe unit. Flip it over, fold the tabs by making this small square. This one up here. Okay, and there's yet another unit. So what's kind of weird about doing this live stream of a modular thing is that you're going to need to make some more units. And let me tell you a little bit about how many units you're going to need. So to make the cube, you're going to need 6 units. Okay, but backing up a little bit, to make the triangular bipyramid, triangular bipyramid, you actually only need 3 sheets. So at minimum, you need 3 pieces of paper, 3 units folded. Okay, so at this point, you probably do have 3, right? But if you want to keep folding more, go ahead. The triangular bipyramid that has the little wings, looks kind of like a UFO. This assembly requires 6 units. Okay, and then if you want to go the extra mile, the stellated octahedron requires 12 units. And if you really want to show off, and you might not get this made during the live stream, but you can work on it. The stellated icosahedron requires 30 units. Okay. Now, when you're making a lot of units, it's helpful to have a little shortcut. So that's what I'm going to show you now. So you can keep making units while I show you this shortcut. Now you could follow along with this shortcut, but one thing that you might not have, I'm going to show you. I like to use this type of paper cutter when making, or when cutting paper. Okay, sorry. I'm trying to zoom out here. Okay, cool. So, what a mess. All right, so I've got this really nice paper slicer. This thing belonged to my grandfather, who I'm named after, by the way. James Ward Copening, my namesake. I'm James Ward Peak. That's where I get it from. But he was an electrical engineer and a carpenter. And he was a maker. But check this out. Look at the bottom of this thing. He paid $7.75 for this. And I'm pretty sure, I don't know for certain, but this might be the month and year that he bought it. August of 1959. Very cool. But I use this, and it is still very sharp. And so if you don't have this kind of paper cutter, it's fine. Maybe you've got your own style of paper cutter. What I don't think you should use, though, do not use scissors to cut your paper. I mean, unless you absolutely have to. But scissors are the least accurate way to cut a straight line in a piece of paper, let me tell you, right? So there's like a lot of other ways of cutting. There's like a type of paper trimmer that has like a slide. It's like basically has a piece of wire and a blade that, like on a little runner. Those are pretty nice. There's also the envelope openers where you fold the paper and you slice it, and those are cool, but those can be a little hard to find these days. But I'm going to show you how I prepare the unit. So just in case you have one of these, or if you wanted to try to find a reason to get one, I couldn't recommend one of these enough. All right. I also have a big 2 foot by 2 foot one in my back room that I use for cutting giant pieces of paper. Okay, but the thing is, we're not ready to cut just yet. All right, so I'm going to come back to this in just a second. In the meantime, though, if you want, maybe in the chat, drop your preferred method for cutting paper. The chat's been pretty quiet. I haven't heard anybody. Usually the chat is pretty active, but that's okay if it's not quiet. Okay, now, I'm going to show you a method for taking a sheet of paper, and we're going to make 4 units out of this. But before we actually cut the paper, we're going to put some creases in it. Now, there's a few advantages to doing this. Now, for one thing, it kind of saves paper. You can get 4 units out of 1 sheet, right? And that can be especially helpful if, say, maybe you've only got like 3 sheets of this really cool 2-colored paper, but you want to make a octahedron, a stellated octahedron, right? Well, this requires 12 units. So you can get 4 out of a sheet, 3 sheets. That gives you enough to make your model. So it's helpful for kind of multiplying the number of sheets you have of that particular color combination. Another thing, too, is that when you're making assemblies that have a lot of units, like, say, the 30-unit stellated icosahedron, generally speaking, at least it's my preference that the units be a little bit smaller, okay? So now we're changing scale, and once again, we need a lot of units. So it can be a little bit easier to get all the number of units that you need, and at a better, more manageable scales. I mean, maybe you do want to make a really giant finished product, and that's cool too, right? But here's what we're going to do. We're going to put the creases in the paper that we would normally put in for both the book creases and the cupboard creases. And we can do it all at once. Now, it doesn't necessarily save a whole lot of time, but when you're making lots of units, I mean, because you can go beyond the 30 unit. I mean, you can make many, many, many more units in different assemblies, and we're not going to go there today, right? But shaving that little bit of time off per unit does really add up, right? So here's what we're going to do. So now I'm going to start with the white side up. Once again, I am going to find the grain of the paper. Okay, there it is. Now, the grain is going this way. Now, I'm not going to make a full book fold, and I'll tell you why in just a minute. But instead, I do still need to mark the halfway point here and here. And I'm going to mark that with a couple of pinch marks. So I bring the bottom edge up, line it up with the top, and then once we're here, I'm not going to fold all the way across, but I'm going to hold it steady, and then I'm going to come over here, I'm going to make a pinch mark on this end of the paper, and then go back to the middle, and then make a pinch mark on this side of the paper. Okay, and I'll let that open up. And I now have two landmarks that I'm going to use not only for putting creases into the paper, but I'm ultimately going to use these as a guideline when I make my first cut. Okay, so now we will put a proper cupboard fold in, and we will make the creases. So we just bring our bottom edge up to meet those pinch marks, and we fold all the way across, and then rotate and do the same with the opposite side. Once again, I like to get this out of the way. Oh, well, yeah, I'm going to get this out of the way so that I can see those pinch marks a little bit better. Of course, I almost forgot. I don't actually have that crease to kind of push up against, so I just have to use the marks that I made, which is fine. All right. OK, so we have cupboard fold. And if I were to just open it up real quick, basically, if you imagine the paper divided into quadrants, the cupboard fold that we just made is the book fold of each of those 4 units. Okay? So now we need to make the cupboard doors. So I'm going to rotate the paper like so. And first, we're going to make the cupboard doors that are on the interior of the paper. And I like to start with these first, because we can just kind of think of it in a certain way, which is we're going to take the edge and we're going to match it to the farthest crease. So as it is now, we can go to the farthest crease and get the correct placement. So now I can use that little technique where I kind of push it up against the crease and make this fold here. And then I open it up, rotate it, and now we've got some extra creases going on here, but it's OK. We can still take the edge to the farthest crease. And so we're going to take that up like so. And of course, that farthest crease, those are our initial cupboard creases, right? OK, so we've got those creases in place now. Now we'll do the outer ones. And for this one, we take the edge of the paper to the closest crease. So now we're going close. Before we went to the farthest, now we're going to the closest crease on each side. You can unfold that. And repeat on this last edge. OK, now we open it up. Now we have the book creases and cupboard creases in 4 units. Now it's time to cut the paper. So let me get my handy dandy paper slicer here. Thanks, Grandpa. And so when I cut the paper on this type of cutter, I tell you, I hardly ever use the grid that comes with it, because more often than not, it's not perfectly square. And when you're cutting paper for origami, it's pretty important that we have square paper, right? Now, some are better than others, and my 2-foot by 2-foot one does a pretty good job. It does well enough, right? So the way I like to make these cuts with this type of paper cutter, so notice I flipped the paper over, so I'm looking at the colored side. And those 2 pinch marks that I made are now basically like mountain folds. Okay. So what I like to do, I put this on the edge of the cutter, and I can actually use those little mountain pinches to line the edge, like the bottom edge of the cutting blade, up with this line that I want to make. Okay. So I'm going to kind of make sure that's held down. I'm going to be careful not to hit my fingers. But now I'm going to connect those 2 pinch marks with a cut. Another thing that I had mentioned before, now I didn't put a crease down the middle because I was going to ultimately cut that line. And you don't usually want to cut along a crease because it's really hard to get a clean edge that way. All right. Okay, so now we need to make 2 more pinch marks so that we can now divide this 2x1 rectangle back into 2 smaller squares. So we're going to use the same technique. I'm going to flip it over to the white side, and I'm going to bring that bottom edge up to the top. And once again, I'm not making a crease, I'm making pinch marks. Line it up, kind of slide down to pull the slack out of the paper on one side, slide down to pull the slack out on the other. And now I can put those little mountain pinches on the edge of the blade, hold it steady. I can't believe how sharp this thing still is after so many decades of use. And I use this thing a lot. Okay, once again, some pinch marks. Ta-da. Yeah, make sure everything is kind of pressed down flat, and oops, you want to pull that slack out of the paper to help ensure accuracy here. Down this way, other way, and that pinch mark was a little big, but that's okay. And there we go. So now that we've cut the paper, we already have 4 cupboard folds ready to go. And then we can just continue making the units the same way that we did before, right? So again, it doesn't save a ton of time, but it adds up when you're making a lot of units. And when I was making the units for like for this octahedron, it did just feel like the process went a lot faster, you know. So anywhere you can just save a little time, it's great. Okay, now that we have made some units, and hopefully you've made some units too, now it might be the case that you have to come back and you know, make some more units, come back, watch the assembly, but you might be able to just kind of pick it all up here just by watching it, right? So the first one I want to show you is the basic cube. So here we go. I've got a cool little graphic to add here. All right, cool. So I'm going to zoom back in a little bit. Okay, cool. So for the cube, we need 6 units. Oh, actually, you know what? I want to use there. So for the cube, I decided for the cube I wanted to do 2 units of each color, of 3 colors. Okay. And so in order to make these, and I haven't actually finished folding these units, so I should do that now. And I probably should have gone ahead and done this before, but we're simply going to fold the corners in to make that square, and these are going to become the faces of the cube. So I'm just going to go ahead and fold these. You keep making your units if you'd like. You know, when preparing for this, like, I wasn't sure how much of the unit folding I should do ahead of time, and I kind of suspected I should probably at least do this. But just to, you know, demonstrate that cube, we're just folding the tabs in. We need these. We want the square to remain flat. Okay. And, you know, it makes sense that you would need 6 units for the cube because the cube has 6 faces. There's that, and then last one. Okay. Now, the reason I picked 3 colors and wanted to do 2 sheets of each color is that when I go to assemble the cube, now these 2 orange pieces, I'm going to put them opposite one another. Now, they're not going to actually tuck into one another. They're going to tuck into units that'll be in between them. But I just want to show you that basically they're going to be coming together like so. Okay? And that's going to be the case for all 3 pair of colors. So I'll have these 2 going this way. I'll have 2 coming from the bottom and top. And then I'll have 2 coming from these 2 sides, here and here. So just to kind of give you kind of a general sense of what's going to happen here. Now let me actually assemble this. Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to start with this green piece, and I'm going to take the orange. And so I'm going to take this tab, tuck it in there, spin it around, take the other orange, and tuck it into this pocket. Okay, and moving on, so I've just done this face. I'm going to move to one of these sides. Okay, so now I'm going to take one of the pink units, and I'm going to slide it on to this green tab, making sure that my other tabs are not getting trapped inside the model. And that's something you need to do for any modular assembly that you do, whether they're Sonobe units or anything else, is you got to make sure that you're not hiding the tabs inside the model. Okay, so I just put the pink one down here. Now over here, I've got these tabs that it just sits right on top of this half of the face. There's a pocket there, so hey, look, we can just tuck that tab into that pocket. Okay, I'm gonna do the same thing on this one. This one's up here. I'm gonna tuck this one in. Erlu, hi from Belgium. Thank you for commenting. Thank you for folding with us. You're the first one in the chat. Where is everybody? No, it's okay. Maybe it's because it's the middle of a weekday, at least here in the Eastern time zone, or most of the United States for that matter. Okay, so there's those two. All right, so I just put the pink one on. Now I'm going to come over here to this side. And I'm going to take the other pink one, because I just did the pink one on this side. I'm going to go ahead and do the opposite pink one. So I've got a tab here. If that's here, I have to put this behind so that I can slide this in like this. Okay. And then here, there's a pocket underneath this tab. So I tuck that in there. Turn it on the other side, and there's another tab sitting on top of a face that has a pocket. Slide that in. And now we're left with two tabs and one more unit. So we get those units, we get those tabs out of the way, and then this unit is going to go in between like so. Okay, so before I tuck these in, I'm going to go ahead and tuck these here in on the side, because it's a little bit easier for me to kind of slide those into those two pockets. And I can slide it all the way on. And then lastly, these two tabs will stick into these two pockets. And there's the cube. Now I use multiple colors for this one. I really like making the cube out of one color combination, so all the units are the same color combination. But you know, it's up to you. You can do it however you like. Okay, so that's the cube. Let's get this out of the way here. Oh, hi, Millie. Thank you for joining us. And you know what? No worries. You can go back and watch the beginning of the video after the fact. So, okay, let's move on to our triangular bipyramid, which is this one. And for this one, you only need 3 units. Very cool. So let me see here. Let me find 3 units that are ready to go. Hopefully they're different colors. Okay, here we go. I'm going to use these 3. Now, this triangular bipyramid, also known as a hexahedron. And so these units start out almost exactly the same, except for we need to add 1 extra fold in the middle of this square. And that's what creates this edge, which I kind of like to think of as like the equator going along that way here. Hi, Hisako. It's okay you're late. You can just watch the video again later. Okay, so for this one, we need to make a mountain fold that follows this sort of gap where the pocket, well, yeah, just that follows this gap. So all we have to do is just take that, pinch in the mountain fold, being careful to try to connect with these two corners here and here. And that's the unit. So let's do that with the other two. This one might already have that crease in there. Yeah, so we're just going to kind of pinch that mountain crease in. And then pinch it in once again. Now, Gabe Merrill Gross, if you're out there, here we go. I'm going to show you the assembly of this hexahedron that you and I were talking about via email. Thanks for emailing me. So if you look at these units when they're kind of bent like this, you can already kind of see the shape of this triangular bipyramid. And of course, by bipyramid, what we're saying is there are two three-sided pyramids. There's a three-sided pyramid on the top, and there's a three-sided pyramid on the bottom. And what's neat here is that if we take one half of this unit, like we're just going to kind of focus on this top half of the unit. And so here's kind of this face here, and here's a tab. If I slide this in to this pocket, already, even just like holding it like this, you can start to see the three-sided pyramid forming here, right? So if I get that one in there, well, let's complete it with our third unit, but I'm going to rotate the model. So now we're looking at this face, and I'm going to take my next unit and take the tab here and tuck it in. And then here, I have to get this pink tab out of the way so it's sitting on top of this yellow face here. And there's the three-sided pyramid. And to finish it, we're just going to tuck this corner in like so. And sometimes what ends up happening is that some of the other units that you've already put together, they're going to want to kind of slide out. So we just have to kind of push all those in. All right. So there's the first pyramid of the triangular bipyramid. Now we need to make the other one. So if we flip it over on the other side, this one's pretty easy because, well, yeah, it's pretty straightforward because we can take one of these faces and kind of bend it in. So there's the other three-sided pyramid. Take this tab, kind of bend that over so that we can put this tab into that pocket. Rotate it. And before I put this one down, I got to make sure that this pink tab doesn't get trapped. So I'm going to lift this up, then put the blue tab or blue part down, and then I can tuck this in here. And then lastly, and sometimes you have to shift the units around a little bit to make things line up, but then we can take this point and tuck it in like so. And there's your triangular bipyramid, another variety of a hexahedron. So we have two hexahedra. All right, let's keep going because we've got a little ways to go. All right, now I want to show you the triangular bipyramid with wings. It also kind of looks like a UFO. Okay, so I'm going to use 6 units. 2, 4, 5. Oh, where's my 6th one? Here it is. Okay, 6. And I don't actually have a little graphic for the one with wings. I'll just leave this one up here for right now. I'll kind of move it out of the way a little bit. Okay, so now this one, to fold the tabs for this one, I'm going to show you a slightly different approach for doing this. Now, of course, I said that we're always going to fold these corners in, but while you're making these, you might try a different approach. This is the way I generally like to do it. So I take this tab and I fold it up, but then I flip it over. Now the difference here, we're going to put a valley crease along the center line. So then I'm going to do the valley crease and then flip it over and take this tab and fold it over like so. It's just a different order of putting those creases in. Hey, Edwina. Yeah, you want to see the UFO. Yes, you've been waiting. The model you've all been waiting for. Okay, so that is what the unit will look like, right? So in a slightly different order, again, this line here, in this case, and for actually the rest of the assemblies we're going to do today, now we will always put a valley crease in there. So you could put the valley crease in and then put the tabs down, like on one side, tab on the other side. Or you could do it, you know, kind of more similar to, it's not very straight. Yeah, anyway, okay. Or you could do it like where we folded the square, because I did tell you, like, you know, all of the units are going to need this square. And then if you flip it on this side, then you can fold your valley crease here. Right? So there's just a number of different paths that we can take. But as I said before, the way I like to do it, and I'll tell you why, is I like to go from one end and basically kind of put my creases in working towards the other. I just feel like the paper, the way that everything is kind of distributed, it just seems a little bit more at ease. I don't know. Because we fold this one up, so we make basically we're making a mountain crease relative to this side. Then we're kind of counteracting it with a valley crease. So it's like, it's like going back in the other direction. And then we're going to counteract that once again with another mountain crease. And try it out. See what you think. I mean, you can do this in any order you want. But after you've made quite a few of these, you start to notice. And so there's that. Fold this up. And by the way, and I kind of already said this, for the octahedron and icosahedron, all of the units are always made this exact same way. So last one. Okay, cool. Okay, so what I'm going to do for this assembly, what I like to do sometimes is I like to make basically I'm making one of the pyramids all one color, and then the opposite side, the pyramid will be a different color, and then we'll kind of be mixing the colors in the little wings. Now, I don't have one actually finished to show you, but you're going to see it now. So I'm going to start with just the 3 purple units. Okay, and it's kind of the same thing that we just did before with the Bipyramid, where we're going to take a tab and tuck it into a pocket. Okay, there's one. And then do it again. Take another unit. Take the tab. Tuck it into the pocket. And then for the last one, I got to make sure that this tab doesn't get trapped underneath. I got to bring it out to the top. Okay, but now I can tuck this in like so. All right, so now if you notice, like these extra, flaps that are sticking out, you can kind of imagine if you were just to kind of like pinch each of those close, that's giving you that sort of UFO shape. That's giving you the little wings. So we're basically going to be forming the paper that way. Now you could potentially make another pyramid with the tab sticking out just like this, but I find it's a little bit easier to keep adding on to what we've already started, as opposed to putting 2 halves together. I mean, it can be done, certainly, and you might prefer to do it that way. Try it if you want, but I'm going to show you the way I generally like to do it. So now with these little wing flaps, this is what I'm going to call them, same thing. We take a tab. Now I'm onto the green units. I'm going to take the tab and tuck that in, okay? But then what I'm going to do, I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to take the new unit and I'm going to collapse it down, and then I'll take this existing purple tab here and tuck it in like so, okay? And that's how you get one of the wings. And I'll go on to the next one. I'm gonna flip it back over here, take another one of the new tabs, or new units, stick the tab into the pocket, okay? Flip it over, make sure that little tab is out of the way, and then take the bigger chunk of paper, fold that down, and then take this tab and tuck it in like so. Okay, do it one more time, turn it over, last one. Take a tab of the new unit, stick it into this pocket, flip it over, take that bigger chunk, close it down, make sure everything's kind of tight there, and then this one, the purple tab, will then go back into this green one. Okay, and kind of shift it around if you have to. But now we're left with, I'm left with this green paper, and I'm just going to do the exact same thing that I did before, where I make the three-sided pyramid here with this equilateral triangle. So I'd put one down, put the next one down, tuck tab into the pocket, and then I'm going to lift this up, and I'm going to put this one down, and I'm going to tuck that into the pocket, and then last one, tuck this in. And as you can see, you get a little bit of color on each side, and they're kind of like opposites of one another. So there you go, Edwina. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, now the grand finale for this stream, and again, I should have just went ahead and finished these units before, but I'm going to show you the octahedron. Okay, now I've already got 12 units folded, but bear with me here. I'm just going to go ahead and just finish those units. And hey, you could take this time to fold some more units too, if you'd like. Also, I'd love any feedback that you have about how the stream went in general. And even just if you want to email me and let me know what type of classes you want to see here in the future, if you want more modular stuff, if you want more figurative, animals, maybe we could do some tessellations. I also had an idea of doing some wet folding. I'd love to do a wet folding workshop. So yeah, just let me know. Let me know what you want to do. Cool. Edwina says, brilliant. I agree. Okay, so there we go. Just kind of whipping these units out here. I'm going to close this little window. Okay. So doing this. Yeah, if you weren't here at the beginning of the stream, I made a big announcement. I'm going to host an online origami retreat the weekend of March 15th through the 17th. It'll be my next big ticketed event. It'll be a weekend-long session with multiple multiple classes, different topics. I'm going to feature some different designers, different artists, and it's going to be really fun. So stay tuned, more to come, but just save the date. Edwina says she'd like to watch me do my honeycomb fold. I'm not exactly sure which one you are referring to. I have an idea what you might be talking about, but if there's any extra oh, hey, people are chiming in now. Cool. Sheila, hey, Ellen, thank you so much for tuning in. Glad you like the variations. Okay, almost done. Look at that. Zip, zap, zap. yeah. Good. I'm glad you like it. I'm glad you like the variations. Okay, so all right, I've got my units done. Like I say, I should have had that done already. You live and learn. So, oh, it was an installation I did. Okay, okay, we'll talk. I think I'm gonna figure out which one you're talking about. I think I might know. So, all right, now I prepared some fun slides here. Cool. Oh, thanks, Luna. I'm glad you like the mood and the pace. I agree. This is fun. Okay, so let's talk about the stellated octahedron. Now, before we talk about the stellated octahedron, we should just talk about the octahedron in general, right? So I prepared this slide here, right? So this is fun. So I've got an octahedron here. It has 8 faces. Each face is an equilateral triangle in this case. And the octahedron has 12 edges and 6 vertices. All right? So here's the one that's stationary. Now, when we say a stellated octahedron, basically what that means is that we're making 3-sided pyramids, just like the ones that we made here for the triangular bipyramid, because it's from an equilateral triangle. And we have this little 3-sided pyramid kind of jutting out. So if you imagine if you were to like take the very center of each of those equilateral triangles and you just kind of lifted it up to make a pyramid, a 3-sided pyramid, that's what gives you a stellated version, okay? So we're going to not only do that with the octahedron, but I'm going to show you what that means for the icosahedron as well. Now what's interesting here is that, so notice that the octahedron has 12 edges. And it makes sense, like, the top pyramid, the kind of sloping edges are 4. You've got 4 that make a circle, that make a square kind of around this equator, and then we've got 4 underneath. But the stellated octahedron with Sonobe units requires 12 units. And that actually makes perfect sense because each of these units, that sort of like center valley crease fold that we made, each of those represents one of the edges of the octahedron. So each of these valley creases, we add them up, there's going to be 12 of them. That's going to give us our finished product. And we'll see the same is true for the icosahedron here in a little bit. So let's actually assemble our stellated octahedron. Okay, so once again, we need 12 units. And actually, here we go. Oh my gosh. I'm trying to be all cool with my graphics here. But okay, yeah, so there's our octahedron, right? I'm just going to put that there in the corner. It's fun. Here's our stellated octahedron here. So now remember, we've got a 4-sided pyramid. So the thing to just kind of remember that when we're putting this together, notice I've got a grouping of 4 3-sided pyramids. 1, 2, 3, 4. And that makes sense because no matter where you're looking at the actual octahedron, like up here, right, there's always like 4 faces kind of rotating around each of those vertices. Okay? So just keep that in mind. We're making rings of 4. So I'm going to take starting unit, and I'm going to start making 3-sided pyramids. So I'm going to tuck that in here. One more. Get this underneath so I can tuck under here, and then tuck this one in here. Okay. So there's my first little 3-sided pyramid. Now, sticking off on all 3 directions, oops, I don't know if this came out or if I just didn't do it. I think it probably came out. That can be one of the infuriating things about doing modulars, is that when you put one in, another one pops out. So, okay, there we go. So I got my 3-sided pyramid. Now, jutting off to the side here, I've got the makings to start another 3-sided pyramid. So I'm going to do that here. So I take another unit, tuck it in, that, and then another one here, and kind of making sure I get underneath. It's just like all the other three-sided pyramids that we've been making up to this point. Now this is where it gets tricky because it's going to want to kind of come apart. You really have to kind of train your hands to like hold it a certain way so that you're supporting it, you're pushing, pulling, whatever you need to do, but also making sure that it doesn't fly apart on you. Okay, so there are 2 of our pyramids. Now to complete the ring, we need to make 2 more. But look here, we've got one starting to come off from this direction, and then we've got one starting to come from this direction, and then those 2 will eventually connect with one another. So let's just focus on one of those. I'm going to focus on this one here to the right. So I'm going to make another 3-sided pyramid, taking another unit, and tuck that in there. And then the last one, I'm going to be really careful not to let this thing come apart. Okay, so we're making our ring here, and we've got 1, 2, 3, but we only want one more in between. But look here, now we've already got these two units that if we were to pull this one over to this side, that gives you the 4th pyramid in the ring. So we can just take this, tuck it in, and there we go. Okay, and so now this 4th pyramid, we can continue adding on to it to finish it up. So let's add another tab, another unit tab, and then this one wants to sit on top of there. Okay, so our 4th pyramid is complete, and now we can keep kind of going around the model, and looky here. So if I look at these 2, I've got the makings for 2 more pyramids that we can then connect. So I just keep doing the same thing. Put that in here. And then what you just have to be aware of is that now that I'm getting a lot of units in place, like this one unit that I put in to help, kind of complete this ring of 4 will also be used to complete this ring of 4. So you just keep looking around for those rings of 4. Here's another one. I can go ahead and tuck this tab into there. Okay. And you always kind of check to see if there's any tabs sitting on top of pockets that you can go ahead and tuck in. And then, okay, so here we go. So here's a ring of 3. I need a 4th one here. So I'll finish that by putting this in here. And then I'm going to kind of wrap this one around here. You just have to just keep looking to see where everything is kind of landing. And you can do it in really any order you want. But just find those rings of 4. Okay. Now, oh, you know what? I was missing a unit. I was like, that's odd that we're going to finish this with this one unit. Nope. There's one hiding. There we go. Okay. So just look for another 3-sided pyramid to complete, making sure not to trap any tabs inside the model. Tuck that in here. There. And now this one is wanting to already sit on top of here. That. And then our last one, we've got these 2 tabs. We want to make sure that they don't get trapped. But we basically decided pyramids that we need to complete that are adjacent to one another, here and here. And there's that, if you see here, this gap, this is that last edge for our 12th unit. Fits right in there, but we got to make sure the tabs aren't in the way. So we put that down here. And then just kind of lay everything on top of itself. it might help if I just go ahead and actually, I'm going to do this a little differently. I pulled the unit out so I could just more easily insert that there, insert this here. Now, if, you know, sometimes you get kind of, things start to come apart and the model explodes, and not even in a fun way, it just explodes. And sometimes you just have to kind of take a few steps back, take a deep breath, and try again. Okay, there we go. Now I got the last little bit. So I would tuck this in here, and then tuck this in here. And there is the stellated octahedron. Okay. All right, now I'm not going to actually make the icosahedron, but let's take a look at this real quick. Okay, so the icosahedron is a 20-sided polyhedron, and it has 30 edges and 12 vertices, which I think is interesting. The 12 vertices, I don't really know what the link is, but or if there really is one, but we needed 12 units for the last one, and now we have 12 vertices. The octahedron had 6 vertices, and we needed 6 units for the one before that. Okay, so I'm quickly kind of taking this apart just to show you. Okay, so once again, we have faces of equilateral triangles. So we can do the same stellated thing here. Basically, is take each of those faces of the icosahedron and turn it into a 3-sided pyramid, right? But the difference here, whereas before we were making rings of 4, now we're going to be making rings of 5. If you look here at the example, notice that like at one of those vertices, you've got 5 triangles kind of making a ring around that one vertex. So it's the same exact approach as we did for the octahedron, except for now we are making rings of 5. Okay, so here we go. I'm just going to quickly make one. I don't have 30 units here to make a whole one, so you know. But yeah, I'm just making rings 5. So basically, you're just kind of squeezing some extra units there in between. I know I'm going kind of fast here. Hopefully, you get the idea. Because, you know, as you're looking here, it's like, okay, so there's 2. Start making another one here. There's the 3rd one. Okay, so instead of connecting this to make the ring of 4, we're going to squeeze one more pyramid in here. Whoops. So here. There's that one. And then, okay, so how many we have? We have 1, 2, 3, 4. And then now these can start to make the 5th one. Okay. So I'm not going to keep going. Well, maybe I'll just add a couple more here, just to show you the ring of 5. Okay. And then, yeah, one more here. Okay, so now, using the exact same units and the same approach, we have a ring of 5. Okay, and so that took 10 units. You can see why you need 30. But again, the icosahedron has 30 edges, and each of these units, this valley crease represents each of those 30 edges, or for each of the units. Okay. All right, now for the final part of this very long live stream. Thank you all who have stuck around. It's so great to have you here. Now, here's a really easy way that you can make any of these. This works for any of these assemblies that I just showed you, but it's really easy to make it into a little ornament, okay? And you might be able to see where this is going. Now, I like to use little jingle bells just because they're fun and, you know, look kind of festive. And hey, you can make a cat toy out of it too if you like. So yeah, all we got to do is take some string, or you could also use monofilament, which is fishing line. And in fact, that's like if you don't want to like see the string so much, monofilament works just as well, right? But you can use string. So I'm going to take a length of string here so you can actually see it. And first I'm going to figure out about how long I want it to be. So, you know, this one, I don't want this to be super long, but, you know, maybe like that much. Okay. So then I'm going to cut. Doesn't have to be exact. And all you got to do is just string the bell. Oh, and I should have said before, you can use a bead or really anything that you can, like any small object that you can tie a string around or loop a string around works just fine. You are welcome, Lisa. Thanks for tuning in. Okay, so now what I'm going to do, you could tie the knot in a number of different ways. I'm just going to kind of even it out. I'm just going to tie just an overhand knot on one end of the string here. And now you can either leave like the cut ends of the string and the knot on one end, but you could also, if you want to hide that, you can kind of move it down here so that it's hanging out, like in this case, it's like hanging out here with the bell, right? All you got to do is when assembling, I'm just going to pull like two of these apart. Things are kind of snug. They don't usually like to be pulled apart. So there. All right. So at this top point, all I want to do is just let that open up enough so that I can drop the bell or the bead inside, and then just kind of wrap the tabs around so that the string is coming out of that very small opening at the top. And you kind of pull it taut. You don't have to pull it too hard, of course. And then reinsert the tabs into the pockets. And it's that easy. And you can do this with a lot of other type of modular or kusadama models. As long as it kind of closes up and there's just a little opening, just use a little stopper on the inside, and you got yourself an ornament or a cat toy. Or you could dangle it from your rearview mirror, as long as it's not obstructing your view too much. Okay, cool. Wow, that was a really long broadcast. Thank you all for tuning in and for being here. And once again, I'm just gonna mention, well, first, next week, or excuse me, not next week, on December 16th, the next live stream, 1 p.m. Eastern Time, 10 a.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. GMT. We're going to have this wonderful Santa Claus model. I'm so elated that Seiji gave me permission, because I don't to teach this model, because I don't think that this is anywhere else yet on YouTube. So I don't think there are any videos out there. I don't think a lot of people actually know how to fold this yet. So I am really excited about that. Of course, if you want to purchase any private lessons, you get half off. Please just email me at james@foldspacestudio.com. And finally, if you weren't here at the beginning, my big announcement: I'm hosting an online origami retreat March 15th through 17th, 2024. It'll be a weekend-long ticketed event, kind of like the convention, but I'm going to be teaching all the classes. But I'm going to have a lot of cool stuff going on, and I cannot wait to tell you more about it. So cool. Now, finally, if you want to join my email list, go to foldspacestudio.com, scroll down to the bottom, and you can subscribe to my email list there. course, I'd love it if you were to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and you can check me out on Instagram at mr.jamespeak and at foldspacestudio.com. And there we have it. Thanks again for showing up. Leslie, Millie, Lisa, Luna, Edwina, Hisako, Erlu, it's been a pleasure. And thank you to you all watching the recording after the fact. So cool. All right, you all have a great weekend. You'll stay warm, and I will see you next time. Bye.